Well, we spent some time on the National Association of Realtors commission settlement this summer already, but we're starting to see some changes take place. I know that some things will be rolling out in August that will also take effect, but we want to talk about what we're seeing right now in the market, what is changing with the process, and kind of what you need to be aware of if you are in the market to buy a new home. Hello, welcome in. This is the Smart Mortgage Show. I'm Ben George. He's Bill Linton, Regional President at Cross Country Mortgage. Glad that you're here. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We cover all kinds of mortgage lending, refinancing, home buying questions, and topics as well. And today, Bill, we're kind of digging back into one we've touched on a little bit here, but it is big news because it is, one of the bigger stories in the industry, especially for realtors, and that's the NAR commission settlement. We have an episode a couple of months ago. Recommend you go back and kind of get a little more details on what's happening and what's kind of fill you up, or at least bring you up to speed on what's happening. But we kind of want to talk today a little bit about some of the changes that you've seen, right, and kind of how things are playing out.
Yeah, as we get closer to that August 17th date in which we need to use all the new forms and follow the new rules, things are starting to change. And what I'm seeing is just, attitudes changing as far as, there was a camp that said nothing's really going to change. And then there's some people who have kind of shifted to another camp that said things are going to change pretty dramatically. And quite frankly, nobody knows for sure what the outcome is going to be on the other side. And I feel like for a couple months, it's going to be a little touch and go. But yeah, we've actually seen some changes. We've actually, seen some agents, some brokerages have come out and have made their stance on how they're going to operate going forward. And it's been interesting for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to kind of see and hear more of what you've kind of been going through. And listen, if you have questions, want to know how this might affect you, what this could mean possibly for closing for you down the road, again, go to smartmortgageshow.com. You can also get in touch with Bill by calling 484-352-4151. So where do you want to start, Bill, as we kind of talk about kind of where things are heading into that August 17th date?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to mention that a lot of people may not know is that in the state of Pennsylvania is one of 18 states that already had a buyer's agency agreement in place. So when a buyer's agent says, hey, to a consumer, a buyer, someone who wants to go buy a house, they have them sign a document that it's a buyer's agency compensation agreement that outlines how that real estate agent's going to be compensated for their services. So we've had this agreement in place in the state of Pennsylvania. And so, I work with a lot of really fantastic realtors, and they're already feeling pretty confident on how they're going to navigate that. Now, the document is a little bit more detailed. It's been updated a little bit, but really the idea is like, you're agreeing to pay the buyer's agent. As the buyer, you're going to pay the agent for their services. It used to be almost assumed that the seller of the house is going to pay that buyer's agent. Well, now there's just a little bit more question of, is the seller's agent going to pay the buyer's agent? We believe overall it's going to continue that way. There's going to be more discussion about how that's going to happen, why that's going to happen. But we believe in the end that's going to stay largely that way. We're probably going to see more situations where sellers don't do it. And when I say more situations, like it was rare, it never happened. Sellers always paid the buyer's agent's commission. I think there's the feeling I'm getting from all the realtors I talk to is like there's going to be some scenarios where the buyer's agent is not paid by the seller of the house. So that's probably going to show up more than it used to. It almost never showed up. Now you might see it a small percentage of the time, and we need to know how to navigate that.
Yeah, and so that just means more falls onto the buyer rather than before, essentially. Is that the bottom line?
Yeah. So if the buyer wants to make an offer on a home and the seller is not willing to pay the buyer's agent, then the buyer is going to have to pay the buyer's agent. So now there are a lot of ways that an experienced buyer's agent can help negotiate and still put you in a good position to buy the house. We can ask for a seller assist. We can do certain things with the financing to help cover those buyer's agent fees. But there's going to be a little bit more to navigate there if the seller's not willing to pay it and puts that on the buyer to pay the buyer's agent.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit before, that, you're just kind of maybe shifting some line items, right? Where, when you talk about getting creative with maybe an offer, you might still take the same amount to closing, but this amount might be going here where before it was going over here, right? It's just getting creative with
Yeah.
the way you're presenting that offer.
Yes, and so I think what you, again, and we talk about this a lot. I think it goes back to this point, is that you're going to want to work with an experienced, trusted a trusted referral of an agent who is going to look at all the details, an agent that is going to take the time to read through the contract. They're also going to be familiar with all of the ways they can help you depending on what situation you should find yourself in. So I think more than ever, the value of the buyer's agent has just become more valuable than it ever has been. And we're talking about them, maybe not getting compensated the way that they used to get compensated. But we believe, I keep hearing that, well, we're just going to, certain agents, certain realtors are saying, well, if we don't offer it out, we'll just do dual agency. We'll represent the buyer and the seller. Well, if they already have a relationship with the seller, it puts the buyer at a disadvantage. So I feel like buyer's agency is more important than ever now, especially in this new environment.
Well, I know some of the one of the main differences is they can no longer put the amount the seller is going to pay the buyer's agent into the MLS. So this does kind of create a little bit of uncertainty and just maybe some variation, right? And that's kind of maybe the gray area on kind of what's to come.
A great point. So when they used to list in the MLS that the seller was offering out a certain amount of commission to the buyer's agent, it was a standardized practice. Everybody knew where to look. Now, some attorney somewhere, and God forbid if you're an attorney, I have nothing against attorneys, but the one that drummed up this class action lawsuit, now they've just de-standardized everything. There's a lack of standardization, so now there's a lot of questions. I feel like with a lot of regulations, when we standardize costs and fees for the consumer, it's to the consumer's benefit. Now, since every deal, every transaction, every opportunity is different, at least in the short term, it's going to be like the Wild West. I honestly am not certain what the outcome is going to be there. I don't love the fact that it's like every scenario is very different, and it just causes, it presents an opportunity for error and issues that certainly were not there before.
Well, what do you recommend for home buyers that are getting into this and now trying to kind of navigate this? And quite frankly, they're not getting the news and the updates, and they're not in the, these conversations with professionals every day. So a lot of there's even more uncertainty and, more of a lack of clarity for them. What is just some basic steps somebody can take now if they're buying a home?
Number one, work with a great realtor. Work with a realtor that's been referred to you that somebody else had great experience with, because you need the best person on your side who's experienced and can navigate through this. Number one. Number two, work with a great lender that knows the rules and has creative ability to, if you're going to have to pay as the buyer's agent, how are we going to make that happen? How can we be creative to not have it come out of pocket? Are there ways that we can help you with this issue? So I think those two things are probably most important, but certainly educate yourself, read the contract yourself, ask a lot of questions, right? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Again, I work with a lot of fabulous realtors. They are open to all of your questions. They are there to guide you to make the best decisions possible. And the only way you can do that is asking questions.
Well, we talk about the experience aspect of this when you're working with people, when you're trying to buy a home is so important, but even more valuable now at this point is trying to navigate these changes that are happening following this settlement. So we'll be sure to maybe update down the road as these forms come out and and we start kind of getting a little more clarity on things. So please hit subscribe. If you have a question, drop one in the comments too. I know we'll try to answer those here, maybe even feature one on a future episode. But if you want to call Bill directly over at Cross Country Mortgage, that's always your best option. 484-352-4151. Again, 484-352-4151. You can take advantage of a free 15-minute mortgage loan consultation, kind of begin finding out more about you, your goals, your overall financial picture, and figure out what's best for you moving forward. So a lot to watch for, Bill. I know it's kind of a busy time of the year with this, and in the middle of everything happening with markets and stuff. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the month plays out, but I know you'll bring us up to speed. So appreciate the insight today.
My pleasure. Always here to help. Thank you, Ben.
This program is for informational purposes only. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action. Bill Litton is a loan advisor and regional president with Cross Country Mortgage, NMLS number 147060.